It's all right.
You do whatever you want to do.
Hey, ladies, how you doing?
Good.
How's your weekend?
Also good.
Yeah. Great.
Oh, what do you ladies think about Good Friday service?
Well, I thought it was really cool that we combined
Yes.
the two church entities here together on
Absolutely.
Friday. It was
Loved that.
really uplifting, and I thought it was great. It was nice to see the church full,
Mhm.
but it was pretty exciting to see how the body can worship like that. It
Yes.
was pretty cool.
So incredible.
Yeah.
So incredible. The worship was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful. I loved it.
What did you think, DeVandis?
I was loving it. And everything, yeah, everything was great. That last song,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't know the young lady name. I know her face, 'cause we always, chop it up, in between both churches, coming and going. She's always coming in the media room, and we chop it up a little bit. I know faces. I'm terrible with names, but she brought it, man. Yeah, and I love her worship and her love to worship. 'Cause I sat in on one of their service, and just like she was there, that's how she is, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And a great Easter service.
Yeah, I think the Easter service, I mean, I was like, those are my,
Mhm.
I don't know, the ones I get most emotional about, I guess.
It was so good.
But it was Ryan and Steve, and they were, they kind of started out talking about fear as a motivator for kind of our actions, and talked about the disciples and how, or not just the disciples, but the Israel people, pinning all their hopes and dreams, if you will, on this Messiah, the new king, and they didn't, they were banking on Jesus to be the, like we talked about last week, the kind of the warrior, and he wasn't that kind of
Yeah.
a king, and how scared and fearful they must have been when they realized that all the things they'd been thinking were going to happen were now
Yeah.
not going to play
Yeah.
out that way.
Isn't that the human way, though? We like to put our own expectations on things.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to go like this.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, good luck with that one. That's why I wear that term. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But they came out of Psalm 22, 1 through 31, and the psalm is things that Jesus said while he was on the cross, and thoughts and words that he had while he was on the cross. And I don't know that I'd ever really read it. I don't know that I booked that that's what that psalm was about. But wow, it was really, really powerful message. And when, because it's pain, and it's mercy, and it's forgiveness, and it's deliverance for us, and triumph for it's all the things that could be. And I thought the way Stephanie opened,
She's incredible.
that was an amazing opening as well.
I taught her well.
Yes. It's all because of you.
Yeah, I think she, for Sunday, she kind of helped set the stage. And, I said, babe, you did okay. You didn't bring that fire like I thought you had practice and everything, because she ran it by me. I said, yeah, give that fire. And that way, Pastor Steve and Pastor Ryan had to just continue to stroke that fire,
Yeah. No, I thought that was a great start to the service, for sure.
Yeah. Was there anything that really stood out to you from the service?
Well, I think Steve or Ryan, I don't remember who said it exactly, but we had been talking about how, people cherry pick the Bible, and one of them made the point that there's a lot of the verses that we're super familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
maybe at the beginning or at the end of a wrap up of a chapter, but it's the stuff in between that if we don't also spend time immersing ourselves in that, then we're missing pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because and it's great to pop in a verse and reference it in some conversation or something, but we need to understand what the rest of it says as well.
Yeah.
And we can
That's
only do
huge.
that if we're, in the Word.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, the feeling that I had was just, it's such a simple concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, God so loved the world that he gave his only son.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just don't think as humans that we can understand that kind of love.
Right. Well,
And
it passes our understanding, right?
Right, yeah.
That's in the Bible
Yeah,
too, and we
and
just
it's
don't
just-
get it.
Yeah, and it's just so simple, and it's like, when you really think about it, the simple things are often some of the more challenging things, right?
Well, they can become pretty complex because you keep looking for a way to explain the simplicity of it, right?
Yeah.
That's a statement. It's a final statement. There isn't any
Yeah.
dancing around it.
Mm-mm.
And we just continue to find a way to make it, or find a loophole, or to make it
Complicated.
complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's our nature.
Yeah. Or it's hard to believe that it really is that simple, right?
Yeah. Right.
You're like, it has to be harder than that.
Yeah. There's more to it than
Yeah.
that. What does that really mean?
That's kind of like reminding me of you, Kim, when you said when you first came to Christ, you're like, oh, that's it?
That's it.
I can do
I
that.
can do that.
You know?
Yeah, that was my, because I went to church for a while, and I'm listening and kind of trying to figure it all out, and it dawned on me that was
Yeah.
all I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, what comes after that is a lifetime of following,
Mhm.
not just believing, but following, and a few hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
Get in my own way, and a couple trust issues here and there, but that's why we keep going back to the grace of God that we
Mm-hmm.
have been given, and we are able to come back and start over.
Yeah.
Not from the beginning, but
Yeah.
but just to refresh and understand that he doesn't go anywhere. We're the ones that continually dance around and
Right.
get in our own way.
Well,
so.
and the work is never done, right?
Right.
It's a long process.
Well, yeah, because if you think you're done, then
Yeah.
also in trouble. So
Yeah. Well, exactly. They talked a little bit about the disciples yesterday and how, these men followed Jesus and were, with him day in, day out doing life. And it really wasn't until his death and resurrection that they knew who he was.
they fully grasped.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that point, they were willing to risk their lives for their faith and their
Mhm.
love for him. And, they did it despite fear, anxiety,
Mhm.
anything. And it's just, we're commissioned to do the same thing as those disciples.
Yeah.
And, we're here to participate in his glory. And I think I often tell my son, who struggles with worry and fear and anxiety, like, okay, be worried, but we're going to do it anyways.
Right. Yeah, it's okay to have those
Right.
things, and that's when you rely on God even more, right?
Yeah.
It is out of your control.
Mhm.
It's kind of all out of our control.
For sure.
But yeah, that's why we need Christ. That is what gets us through those times when we're feeling a little less than,
Yeah.
and it's so important to have Jesus in our corner and
I know.
and look to him first instead of our own counting on ourselves to fix a
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just think, it was such a great reminder yesterday, just talking not only about the disciples, but just about our fear and worry, and how Christ achieves our salvation, and we only have to believe with our whole heart and soul. And we don't need to be anxious or strive for that.
Well, he overcame that for all of us, right?
Right.
Through his suffering, and that allows us to continue to live out our lives and with that knowledge that, again, ultimate sacrifice, and because that's how much God loves us, and it's astounding when you think about it.
Right.
It really is. It's a really big deal.
It is. Yeah. I know. And I just think too, like, when you, over this past week, as we've kind of relived that story leading up to the cross and the resurrection, and you just put yourself there, right, as you read through it, and just such a grateful heart, but just thinking of all the anguish that he went through, knowing what's coming.
And knowing that he could have stopped it, but he did it
anyways.
Yeah.
He decided to be obedient to the will of God.
Yeah.
And he did it anyways. And I just can't even imagine.
No, I can't either. And because
yeah,
it is, and we've said that many, it is unimaginable,
right,
to think about that kind of a sacrifice. I think we all kind of, especially if you have children, you think about being sacrificial for your child.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, about as close as I can get.
Yeah.
But to do it for people that I don't love necessarily, and they still, get the gift, and then they get to decide whether or not they're going to expound on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even in his anguish, right, he was still going to the Father. If there's any other way, and he's, going in prayer and just turning his heart towards the Father. And I just think how easy we turn away.
Right, because it's hard.
Right.
It's hard.
It's hard. We think we can do it in our own strength. We know better.
Yep.
Ugh.
But his death on the cross is to take away our fears. Right. He loves us unconditionally.
Yes.
And we don't need to be fearful because he's already borne the cross for us. I mean,
we have the antidote.
Right. Yes, we do.
It's like when my children come to me and say, "Mom, I have a headache." I'm like, "All right, go take some Advil, Tylenol, whatever." No, it's not going to work. I'm like, "Oh, great." I feel like that's what we do, right?
Yeah. I tried that once, and it didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to, so I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I can take that pill again.
The key word was the way I wanted it to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I've got a couple questions, because the way Steve and Ryan kind of started out, what scares you and why? That's probably a fairly easy one to answer with the what scares you part, but maybe not the why. And then, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You face your fear. People will do all sorts of things, but if you know that God's got your best interest at all times, I mean, what do you have to be fearful of in reality? And I know there's workaday stuff that's sometimes driving is a scary thing, for example, but we're talking about just real deep things that cause you grief and strife and do scare you. What's the response to that kind of fear, I guess? How does the good news apply to you? Which we've talked about so often.
Yeah.
But I think the one I want to leave everybody with, I mean, you can chew on those for sure, that have you ever said to yourself, if I only try harder, or if I only had this thing, it would be better, or if I could only do that thing? And then, what does that say about your relationship with Jesus?
Yeah.
If only I. I think anytime we start a question or a statement with that,
Yes.
We've already failed.
Right.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our heart. We need to do that heart check.
Check yourself.
Alrighty, thank you guys for tuning in, and wraps up the show for today. Do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, so you can stay up to date with the latest from these two ladies, Fire and Ice, Kim and Amanda. Alright, until then, we are out.